In the fabled land of Northern California, nestled in the Valley of Sacramento, two friends begin a journey to enlighten the world about their experience living life as a Xennial. But what is a Xennial, you may ask? If you wish to know, then follow them on their adventures.
Welcome to the Xennial Chronicles. This is James.
This is Mike.
And, of course, we had a little hiatus. We're back from the hiatus.
A slight one.
Just a week off. And that the reason we had to take a week off is because I got to do some cool things. One, on last Thursday night.
Yeah.
I was able to take my son, who is like the hugest Godzilla fan. We've talked about this. I was able to take him to see a 2002 Toho movie. Toho being the Japanese film company that made Godzilla. It was a 2002 film, Godzilla against Mechagodzilla.
Oh, man.
And I want to tell you something. First of all, I was a little worried because he geeks out a lot when it comes to the Godzilla movies and it's hard to keep quiet.
Yeah.
But I didn't have to worry about it because we showed up at the theater, right? We're in line getting refreshments and whatnot because he's got to have his popcorn and his soda for his movie experience. I still can't eat popcorn because my healing is still happening on all my dental issues.
Ah, yes.
So I avoided the popcorn and instead found that this specific theater, they had the icy machine. And in fact, this prompted a conversation with somebody. I believe I had the conversation with my father, who is not really a frozen drink aficionado. But he understands that there is differences between Slurpees and Icies and Slushes. These are all different drinks. They have a different consistency to them. And if you want a Slurpee, an Icy will not do. They are not interchangeable. They are different things.
Absolutely.
But the
this
Icy
is the
machine, normally, your Icy machines, they have the blue raspberry and the wild cherry. And if you're a smart person, you mix the two. Occasionally they'll get you the Coca-Cola flavored one, which is,
dude, you're making me I know we haven't even been into this for like 2 minutes yet, and you are making me so want to go get an icy right now. It's not even funny. Exactly the way that you just described it. You mix them both. That is the only way you do it. Both. Yeah.
That's the way. And like I said, they have the Coca-Cola one, which I always, if there's the Coca-Cola available, I always get that because it's soda flavored, and I like a cola flavored candies. I like that stuff. But they had two machines, right? And each machine had 3 slots for different flavors, and both machines had the blue raspberry and the wild cherry because those are the most popular.
Mm-hmm.
One of the machines had the Coca-Cola as the third flavor. The other machine, though, it had mango. Mango flavored icy, and I like mango flavored things, so I was like, I want that. I want the mango. Let me tell you something. That was some damn good mango icy, and that's all I had for the night was the mango icy. But we're in line waiting to get this stuff, and I hear my son saying, "Yeah, Godzilla," and he's not saying it to me though, and I've already tried to calm him down. Yeah, we're going to see Godzilla. It's all good. And I turn around to look what he's doing, and there's a guy behind him that he's exchanging high fives with.
Nice.
That's wearing a Godzilla shirt, who's obviously there to see Godzilla
of course.
As well. And I was just like, okay, I know this world. I know this world.
This is, yep.
I've been to Star Wars opening night. Yep. I know this world. And sure as shit, we walk into that theater, and it's not a very big one. It's one of the smaller theaters.
Right.
We walk into that theater, and it is, I mean, man, especially when you are a nerd of some type or another, when you walk into a room of nerds, you're in the room of nerds.
Right.
And I was in a room of Godzilla nerds.
Cool.
I can tell you.
All
full
right.
out. And
so as one who is familiar with the environment overall, like, the vibe. You get the vibe.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I've been in rooms with the Marvel nerds. I've been in rooms with the Star Wars nerds. This was like full-fledged, these are Godzilla nerds, and I'm like, all right, we're good.
I was gonna say, this sounds like some rock concert shit. You know what I mean? Like everybody going to see it. Yeah, even if it's not your favorite band, you go in there, you're in there, you feel the vibe. You better be wearing the right t-shirt. You know what? And you better be. It's like going to think about it. It's like going to a Kiss show. You go to a Kiss show, even if you don't like Kiss, you're going to a Kiss show. you better shut the fuck up if you don't like Kiss.
which is why I don't go to Kiss shows.
But I mean, Kiss shows are a vibe. Kiss shows are totally. You've got the face paint, you got the whole deal. Like this is con level. This is con levels of enthusiasm, right? That you're gonna catch. I love this. I just love the whole vibe because everybody's feeling themselves and they're feeling the whole room at the same time.
And so for the first few minutes of the movie, I'm trying to get him to it's a movie theater. I get you're excited, man. Let's just not too much of the outbursts. But then like I'm hearing it everywhere. Every time anything happens, like, yeah, Godzilla, go Mecha Godzilla. It's like, okay, fuck this. Let him do whatever the hell he wants. He can say what he wants to because it's coming from this whole damn room.
That's great.
The problem I had with this movie, and I did have a problem with this movie, I think it may be a cultural divide.
Okay.
Because there were plot pieces missing that was not bringing the story along for me.
Oh, really?
It feels like scenes were cut out of exposition, but I can chalk that up to I've watched a few different movies from Toho that are Godzilla movies, and the thing is, they are not necessarily very big on exposition. American audiences, we want more exposition in our Godzilla movies, and we demand, explanation of the entire story and everything that's going on, because that's Americans say they need to know all this shit. The Japanese don't necessarily need to know this shit. This was a movie made in Japan for Japan. Wasn't made worried about international markets or whatnot. They just made it for, Japanese audience who loves Godzilla. And so it just moves very quickly through story points and doesn't really explain shit very well.
So is there just assumption of general common knowledge that's just taken into account there that doesn't need to be explained?
No, what I'm speaking more of is the exposition between the relationships and characters. There's very little dialogue between the characters that really goes into any of what we in America would consider the necessary story points and dialogue points to move the relationships along.
Right.
It's very way simplified. It's as if like a scene that would have been in America like 6 pages, they just do 1 page. And suddenly these people are working together now, and it's like, okay.
Oh, it's like there's no introduction. There's no, that's like half of the appeal of Independence Day is when people meet each other for the first time, and then that back and forth between these two characters that you've seen established all of a sudden finally interacting. So you don't even have that. It's just like, oh, this person's sick. All right, I guess this is happening now. Like that just happens all the time.
Basically, yeah, that's like the movie. There's no real in depth of the relationship.
I have seen some Mystery Science Theater movies that have that. Like I am absolutely completely unfamiliar with the Godzilla fan base, right? It's a kaiju film. The reason why you go is because you want to see giant monsters kick the shit out of each other while tearing down entire cities. Like that's the reason why it's happening.
And see again, that's what works well for the Japanese audiences because this is what they're used to for their films.
Right.
American audiences, we want a whole lot more exposition, and so
you want context. That's why comic book movies a lot of the time, comic book movies now, even, and I can watch a Marvel or a DC movie late into the experience right now as someone who's never seen anything in any context. And still get a backstory to what's happening. You can still get an understanding. Like I watched the second Doctor Strange movie, the new Doctor Strange movie, without having to watch a ton of other Marvel movies and still be able to enjoy myself, get things within context. Like I saw literally nothing with Scarlet Witch in it. Nothing. That's the first experience I've seen with Scarlet Witch. I skipped WandaVision. I skipped Civil War. I take that back. I saw the first 30 minutes of Civil War and then had to turn it off because I had to go do something else. Never came back to it. That's the only context I ever got. Okay? That was it. And I still watched the new Doctor Strange film.
Now.
Huh?
You're causing me physical pain right now.
Well, too fucking bad because I'm giving you I am confirming exactly what you just said. Because anyone who is unfamiliar with the experience, I know who Scarlet Witch is.
Yeah, that's it. That's the thing is, American films make sure that exposition is in there because we need it, we crave it. We have issues when there's not enough exposition in films.
You know what's really funny is even with that,
we make it into like an artsy film. We think it's an artsy film.
Yeah, I can understand that. It's really funny. Just if I can add another point to what I just said. Even in the middle of that, without knowing anything about it, I still understood the emotional aspect of what was going on. Yeah. Everything that was happening with her, why she was ruthless, what she was doing, like you get the definition of everything with establishing scenes at the beginning that don't even necessarily need to be there for anybody else. Like, you knew all that shit when you watched the scene in the beginning. I knew jack. All I knew that it was, I knew... I don't even know if the kids were real. I don't think the kids are real. I think what you told me was the kids weren't real. But the fact that the kids were there and she's trying to find her children in another universe because her children are gone, that gave me the emotional understanding as to the attachment of the technical villain of the film, even though she is the villain of the film. But at the same time, that's one thing that we... especially in more recent movies, like the understandable villain that appeals to the average person has been big on, like movie production in general. Humanizing the villain is a huge thing. And so I understood the context without understanding the entire backstory. And you know way more about it than I do. And I still got it. But
yeah, that is one of the things that that the Marvel movies have really made a point of doing, is giving almost all the villains have a good reason for why they want to do what they're doing. It's just they're doing it the wrong way. They take it too far, and that's the issue. The issue isn't that they're just purely evil. They're just people who are misguided in what they're doing, and
and I don't want to bring it
than they need to.
I don't want to bring it too far out into left field. Basically, I'm just trying to establish that I understand that is an American cinema thing. And not necessarily I don't think that happens most of the time in most other countries. I think just because they're trying to appeal to as wide an audience as they possibly can, like catch a few other new people to this franchise, they do that. They establish the story in an understandable context. And that in and of itself is an art form. But I do completely understand when that's missing, it doesn't make any fucking sense. To those who are unfamiliar.
It's strange for an American audience. That's the only thing that it is. For me having the majority of my rooting in American cinema, I've seen a few. I've seen probably more than just your average American. I have seen a lot of foreign films. But to say that compared to people who actually love and watch foreign films, I haven't seen a lot of foreign films, and I can admit to that. But I have seen that, especially in Asian production in general, not just Japanese movies, but some Chinese movies that I've seen, some Indian movies that I have seen. They handle relationships and exposition in a totally different way, and it is different than what American audiences are used to. It's not bad. It's not incorrect filmmaking. It's just different than what we're used to.
Yeah,
so
sure.
It can be a little bit jarring. However, the kaiju fight between Godzilla and the Mechagodzilla, including he was a proper Mechagodzilla with the 0-point weapon, and it was fantastic movie.
Don't even know what that means.
Huh?
I don't even know what that means. The 0-point weapon.
You do know what that means.
I do.
I think so. I think it's called the 0-point weapon. Maybe it's called something different. It's the thing that the ray from the center of Mechagodzilla's chest.
Oh.
Okay. Freezes everything?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I remember now.
I was going to say, you're the one who told me that's how he defeated the Dragon Megazord.
Yes.
With that weapon.
Yes. Oh, that's right. I told you about the death battle with that.
Yes.
Yeah, to anybody who's not familiar with this,
but
I love the ever-loving hell out of a fan lore combat series called Death Battle that pulls major franchises from two different major it pulls major heroes or villains or whoever, like powerful characters that tend to be similar from two entirely different franchises, and they combine, and I'm saying this straight from what they say, they combine weapons, armor, power, and skill. And combine them all together, they do the actual real world universal potential math to find out how powerful, how fast, how cunning, how intuitive these people could be in a one-on-one battle with no prior engagement to the death. And they just put them to, they pit them to the death, and it's great. The most recent one, because they had the most recent one they did was Halloween, was Jason Voorhees versus Michael Myers, which you would be shocked how similar their stats actually were before the fight actually happened. Their inspiration, their versatility, their intuitiveness, like all of these specs. Now, who would you think would have won between the two?
I don't care.
Well, fuck you then.
Because they're literally, one's wearing a Shat mask, the other's wearing a hockey mask. Otherwise, they're basically the same fucking thing as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, dude. There are so many of them that are really fucking good.
Well, no, I'm sure some of the other battles are. I'm just saying those. This is a point of contention within my household because of my wife, who is a huge horror movie fan. Again, anybody that listens to this podcast can recall the tale of traveling all over the place to try to find a freaking Annabelle doll. My wife loves horror movies. She keeps buying horror movie sets. The thing, though, is like, I think they're all stupid. The only series I like, and I only like certain movies in the series, is the Scream series because it's highbrow, making fun of horror movies. It's still a horror movie, but it pokes fun at the genre.
Scream,
and so some of them do. Not all of them. Some of them do. And so, and it pokes fun at movie making in general. And I love it. I think it's great. There's so many. It was meta before meta was the thing. That being said, as far as any of the other major horror icons, okay, there's not a single one of the horror movie sets that I've ever cared anything about whatsoever. And they all are basically kind of the same to me. As far as I'm concerned, Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees are basically the same. The only difference is the type of mask that they wear. And one of them gets you inside, first one of them got you like what, inside towns? Actually, they all went different places because originally Jason was only around the damn Camp Crystal Lake. And then he went to New York, and then he went to space, and like, who knows where that fucker's going next. And Michael Myers at least kind of stays in the same area. He doesn't get all crazy and go everywhere, but still, it's just, I have zero care for either one of them, and they're basically the same to me. There's no real difference. Although I do understand that in one of the Friday the 13th movies, Jason does beat the shit out of a girl while she's in a sleeping bag, smacking her up against a tree. That's just funny.
Oh yeah, that was great.
Happen, that's just hilarious.
That was great.
There's actually, again, I've never seen any of these movies either because I don't care.
Dude, there's a scene in the new Halloween, one of the new Halloween ones, that's like basically it retcons like most of like the really dumb ones, and it basically is there was a new Halloween that took place. They're basically turning it into like a trilogy, I think, totally. It's either trilogy or
was it the Rob Zombie ones?
No. The Rob Zombie ones aren't even part of it at all. No, they take the first Halloween with Jamie Lee Curtis. And she's done multiple Halloweens, but
she's the one that just came out this last like 2 weeks ago or whatever.
That is the ender of the entire series. There was what is it? There's Halloween Kills. There's Halloween, and I think there's Halloween Kills and Halloween. The new one is Halloween Ends. And it's okay. There's Halloween the original, and then Halloween 2018. And that was the return to the series that retconned everything other than the very first Halloween movie. And then Halloween Kills was the second of that trilogy, and then Halloween Ends was the final one. So they basically turned Halloween into a quadrilogy and retconned literally every other Halloween that came out previously. And if I remember correctly, I think Halloween Kills got one of the best scenes, one of Michael Myers' hands down best scenes in it, which is he is beat to shit by the entire town. We're talking Frankenstein level, bring the torches and just fucking kill the guy in the streets. They take him and just like, dude, they're stabbing him, they're shooting him, all this kind of stuff, and his body's laying there. And we're talking like the chief of police in the entire town are going after this guy and bring him until he's just like a bloody mess on the floor. He gets back up and it's just this melee massacre of everyone that was there after it makes absolutely zero sense with what happens, but he does it for some reason, survives because it's fucking Halloween movies, and it's just this mad ridiculous massacre of everyone that just tried to kill him in the previous 30 seconds. It's so ridiculous.
I'll give it that.
It's entirely confusing. But
amusing. I'd probably laugh at that.
Oh, it is as confusing as it is funny. It's one of the dumbest things I think I've ever seen in a film, and I've seen some dumb shit. But it was
so have I.
But yeah, it was great. But as far as if I can throw out this franchise. Competition death battle series is honestly like one of my personal favorite series on YouTube on the internet, and is just some of the weirdest shit. They did do SpongeBob versus Aquaman in a battle to the death recently.
Aquaman.
Blonde hair Aquaman from like not like Jason Momoa Aquaman, but they took every incarnation of Aquaman, they put them together as one thing.
Okay.
So they take the specs of like the comic books and the series, but they will take like the cartoony like Hanna-Barbera shit and they will put that into context. One of my favorites, which I absolutely loved, there were a couple of them this last season that were incredible. They put Hercules and pit him against Sun Wukong. They pitted they pitted Magneto versus Tetsuo from Akira. Scarlet Witch versus Zatanna from DC. And
Zatanna's not that powerful.
Zatanna actually has quite a bit. I don't remember who the winner was. I watched this one, but I don't remember who the winner was.
Because literally, Scarlet Witch has chaos magic. She can affect like reality completely. She can completely alter reality.
I believe Zatanna can do something very similar.
She straight up, like in the House of M, she straight up basically made all the mutants disappear.
Yeah, but what else do you know of Zatanna?
Admittedly, not as much. She's more of a tertiary character. She never really had any major storylines that I remember. So,
to give you a let's see. There's one point where Zatanna planted Swamp Thing inside of a god and weaved a spell to regrow reality in seconds after reality was destroyed. So she had the capability of tricking gods. So they're talking like crazy. Just they take as much context as they possibly can before they pit them. Now I don't remember who the hold on, let me see who actually won that one. Actually, Zatanna won that death battle. It's interesting just to see the context of which. How do you determine this math is the question. That's what I want to know.
I know that Zatanna could kick Superman's ass.
Well, she can kick if she can kick the shit out of Superman has that's one of the biggest weaknesses Superman has is two magical powers in general. Superman is super weak against magic.
He has nothing to protect him against magic.
Yeah, absolutely right. Nothing. That's why guys like Black Adam and Shazam are damn near 50-50 with the guy because their powers are magically derived. They're not within the laws of science. So it's a whole different context to that. And I apologize if I feel like if it feels as if I have commandeered this conversation and pulled it to a completely different direction, because that wasn't intended. But
no, it's all good.
But
it all interacts. And when we're talking about a movie like Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, so we're already talking about a kaiju fighting a robot version of the kaiju. Talking about those similar type of battles is that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was an enjoyable movie. I can bring it back to the movie. It was an enjoyable movie for me for the most part. A little disappointed with the effects from 2002. I would have expected slightly better effects, but again, it was Toho, so Toho was trying to walk the line at that point between the original look of Godzilla and the original feel. This is a movie about paying homage and staying within the universe properly, as opposed to the breakaways that the American versions of the different Godzilla movies have done.
So what was the contextual difference? Like, was it still kind of practical and it still kind of had like the rubber suit kind of shit going on a lot? Or
there were
really
suits the entire time.
Really? They stayed with the rubber suits?
They're good looking suits, man.
I was gonna say I could appreciate that. In 2002, man, everything was done with CG. It was ridiculous.
No, they used CG on a few things, and the few things they used it on did not look. The CG was not very good, but the suits were completely practical suits. They were in the suits the whole time, fighting amongst miniature landscape and whatnot. So
I love it.
The blending of it. The blending of it was actually worse with their attempts to use some of the modern technology than some of the original films were. But still enjoyable. What was really nice though was before the movie, because it's not a very long movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's maybe an hour and 20 minutes, if that.
Mm-hmm.
Before the movie, they had a short that was a fan done short. A Japanese group did this. It was maybe a 5-minute short movie of Godzilla versus Hedorah, which Hedorah hadn't been seen in a long time. Smog monster, basically.
Okay.
And it was in practical suits, but it had a lot more action than the suits normally do, and it was just the two monsters fighting each other.
Mm-hmm.
But they show you the short film, and then they show you a short documentary of how these guys made the film, and it was fantastic to see that. I was geeking out more watching that than the whole movie, just the way that they had built these sets to work, and the way that they had set and done the filming for it, and the newer cameras that they could use doing different type of filming than what you'd normally expect in a Godzilla film. Moments where the camera moved behind buildings where actually you could see part of it's like tiny bits of the action behind like a big like water tank type building.
Mm-hmm.
But the action goes behind that as the camera shot is tracking, very long tracking shots with the two monsters fighting each other. More modern filmmaking angles and technique in that.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of gave it a different look to the fight and a different feel to it. It's kind of neat. But what I didn't know, because this happened on November 3rd, what I did not know is that November 3rd is Godzilla Day. It's an official kind of thing where the first Godzilla was released on November 3rd, like 60 some odd years ago. So November 3rd is the unofficial, really, Godzilla Day.
That's dope.
So my Godzilla loving son got to see a Godzilla movie that hadn't been shown in theaters since 2002, may never have been shown in America, may have just been a Japanese release, on Godzilla Day. So that was just really awesome. The very next night I got to go to a concert for the band Blue October.
Mm-hmm.
Not a band most people know. If they do know them, they know them from the mid 2000s. They had an album with the songs Hate Me and Into the Ocean. Those are probably the only two songs that most people nationwide would know of the band Blue October. They're from Houston, Texas. And for the most part, they have a very big following in Texas, and they have a decent following nationwide. some following in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
But those two songs back in the, like I said, the mid 2000s were kind of, they were off of one album that was their only like major charting album. And those songs got a lot of airplay, especially actually in the Sacramento area. This is one of the areas that was playing those two songs very heavily on the radio. Back in the days where, radio airplay was your ticket to things.
Yes.
Which is why a local radio personality from back in the day that still works radio, you know him, don't you? Don't you know Andy Hawk?
Well, I mean, yeah, I've met him a few times, and I think I'm like friends with him on Facebook or something like that. But yeah, I've known him for a while.
Yeah,
he does the shows. He still, I think, headlines the Powerhouse shows in Folsom.
Okay,
he does. He puts them together.
He was one of the people back in the day that was playing Blue October's music fairly regularly.
Wow.
So he kind of helped get him, at least in the Sacramento area, he helped get him fairly well recognized in this area.
Oh.
And so it's a band I've liked for a long time. One of their albums is, I did find out that the specific album that's my favorite of theirs was the last album that they did not release on vinyl. After that album, they started releasing all their albums on vinyl as well as on CD. Wow. That was the last album that they made that they did not do a vinyl release for. Which is suckage because it is one of my favorite albums ever.
Well, you'll probably have to wait until they do a reissue and they do a vinyl reissue. I've been actually like, that's a big thing now. The vinyl resurgence is like, it's out of this world, man. Just albums that I never got on vinyl that like I'm really tempted to pick up on vinyl now. And even stuff on cassette that doesn't sound particularly half bad at all either. Like there's something I like about the tone of both vinyl and cassette. It puts you in a different world. Even when you make, and a lot of the time what I do in order to keep my vinyl in good shape is I don't play it over and over and over. I'll play it once and I'll digital backup it because I kind of want to take it on the road with me anyway. But I do like listening to something on vinyl. It sounds there, you hear the medium. And I get that with cassette tapes too. Like I'm like, I'll pick up a cassette tape of, I do total nerd rock, so I'll pick up a Jethro Tull cassette or something like that from like 1986 and pop it in and back it up and then listen to it on my phone in the car because you still hear the cassette tape's tone in it. You don't have to like, you don't really hear like the flaws in the recording or anything, but there's a tonal warmth to cassettes that I tend to like, and it's honestly not even as clear as what you could get on streaming. It does sound entirely different, but there's a part of me that gets a personal satisfaction from listening to it within that context because it's different from what I can dial up on my phone on Spotify or whatever. Like I like that part of it. There's something I find satisfying about it.
It's funny that you say that you'd be going into nerd rock. I would be getting, if I was going back to like the cassette days, I would be getting a whole lot of music that nobody would expect from me. And during a recent deep dive on one of the new records that I got, I realized that there's actually a style of music that I have been erroneously just referring to as hip hop or R&B. And there's actually a specific style of music, a version, an offshoot of hip hop that apparently all of my love for hip hop falls into.
Really?
Well, okay. As you know, my wife had recently found for me 2 new albums that she wanted to pick up. She found them. She knew that one of them I for sure wanted.
Mm-hmm.
The other one I was mildly interested in having because when it did come out in my early adulthood, it was an album that was a little bit, I would say, almost groundbreaking at the time it came out. And it was one that I know you and I listened to a bit when we were still roommates. That one being Linkin Park Hybrid Theory.
Oh yeah.
Which, great album. And my son likes Linkin Park, so I was able to play that one for him the other day, and he was really excited about that one.
Oh yeah, that's great.
But the other album that my wife found, the one that I said I really wanted, and it's unusual because when most people want an album from this artist, they go back to like the best-selling album of all time that is his album. They go back to the older stuff. And the artist I'm speaking of is Michael Jackson. That is, of course, if people even want his albums anymore, because there's still the questionability of his, personal character issues and whatnot. Regardless, people would go for, the older albums, the stuff that's got the hits that they're thinking of. But as I've said on here before, and I know I've told you, the first cassettes that I bought for myself, not the first ones I was given. The first one I was given was Debbie Gibson's Electric Youth. And yes, I will get Debbie Gibson's Electric Youth and her second album, Out of the Blue. I will be getting those on record at some point, because I am still unapologetically a Debbie Gibson fan. She wrote all of her own music, and she was 16 years old. So, hell yes, I'm a Debbie Gibson fan. She was amazing. Still is.
So, Avril Lavigne?
The difference is I don't like her music as much as I like Debbie Gibson. So, there's that.
I was wondering how you were going to actually get around the difference between the two, because there's obviously one, but just making it personal like that was great. It was unapologetically great, and there is no explanation necessary.
Husband choices, but
I mean,
I didn't want to go into that. I
think I remembered watching a riff tracks from back in. Oh, it was the riff tracks on Twilight. So the only context I will ever watch Twilight in is on the riff tracks. Riff tracks is basically, to anybody that doesn't know, riff tracks is it's a commentary track made by the guys that used to do Mystery Science Theater in the 90s. And if you don't know Mystery Science Theater, go find it. Just go fucking find it and watch it. You'll know what I'm talking about. And anyway, they're talking about something, and I think somebody makes a reference to Avril Lavigne. And it's like years and years after, like, her career like died out for like a period of like 10 or 12 years or something like that. And this is way before she married Chad Kroeger. And somebody says something to the point of, Avril Lavigne, isn't that the chick that married the band Sum 41? And then one other guy turns around and goes, Jesus, it sounds like everybody would lose in that situation.
Like I said, her poor husband choices. I pluralized that. But no, I can say there was one song of Avril Lavigne's that I kind of liked. It was the one slow song that she had, and I kind of liked that song. But like, for the most part, I couldn't stand Avril Lavigne's music. That's the difference. I liked Debbie Gibson's music. I never liked Avril Lavigne's music.
I was never really that big into either Debbie Gibson or Avril Lavigne. Like, Avril Lavigne, I kind of got when she like first came out. I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. And
Debbie Gibson was also in like 1986.
Yeah, exactly. So everything that happened in 1986 used a drum machine, and I just was always averse to that, even when I was a kid. I just didn't like anything that used a drum machine. I was not a fan of it.
That's all right. But anyway, like I said, the first three, that was the first. Debbie Gibson's Electric Youth was the first cassette that was given to me as my own personal cassette. But the first ones that I bought by myself were Guns N' Roses' Use Your Illusion 1 and 2.
Okay.
And Michael Jackson's Dangerous. And that would be, if I was going to get a record
that is a hell of
Michael Jackson.
That is a hell of a trio of albums to have, my man.
Well, but I realized why I bought them the other day.
Yeah.
So my wife happened upon a Walmart exclusive of Michael Jackson's Dangerous, and she was like, "You want this, right?" I'm like, "Yes, of course I want it. It's Michael Jackson's Dangerous. Plus, it's a Walmart exclusive, so it's a cool color. It's like a silver color. It's really neat." And I put it on, and I was listening to it. And I was like, I've never really done a research on this. That was the first album that he broke away from Quincy Jones as his producer.
You see, this is shit I didn't even know until you told me. Yeah, that's incredibly fascinating. I didn't know that.
He self-produced it. He brought in a couple of other people to help with the production, including a guy named Teddy Riley. Now, that name meant nothing to me until I did research on him.
Oh, man, yeah.
Teddy Riley is the guy who basically was the pioneer of the New Jack Swing sound.
Yes.
Now, I knew about the New Jack Swing sound, but I didn't know what specifically defined that as a separate category of hip hop. And then as I'm reading the various artists that are basically New Jack Swing sound artists. I'm reading like Bobby Brown, and I'm like, yeah, I totally loved Bobby Brown. I had like 3 cassettes of his. And I'm reading like the first album by Boyz II Men.
Oh my God! So he's doing. Yeah, that's the first thing I heard. So the first thing you're telling me about Teddy Riley, that was the first thing I clicked on. When you said it was those guys, I was like, oh, so he produced Remember the Time then. Like, because that swing on the hat, like that's what New Jack Swing is. So Belle Biv DeVoe does it, and Boyz II Men does it, and I was like, oh, that's what that is. With the horn hits and like all that. That's the sound, man. That's like
TLC.
Penultimate mid to late 90s R&B hip hop, like upbeat dance music. Like
Montel Jordan, this is how we do it.
Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah. And so like as I'm doing this, I'm realizing all the old stuff that I used to call hip hop that I liked. I apparently was a huge fan of New Jack Swing and did not realize it. And this was in a way with Michael Jackson doing a New Jack Swing style album. That was a way to bring it more mainstream than it had brought by any of the other artists, because Michael Jackson kind of at that point in his career, he reached across basically all borders of music.
Yeah.
And that helped bring it way more to the forefront than instead of it being just a niche part of hip hop. But here's the thing I realized while listening to this album. I get to there. It's two records. I get through 1 and 2, side A and B, right? I get to side C, the first side of the second record, and it starts with the song Black or White. And I remember when basically that video was like broadcast on like 7:00 at night, national television, everything shut down just to broadcast the new Michael Jackson video.
I remember
his music video.
Yes, I remember the night that happened as a kid. I do remember that night. It actually was it was broadcast. I can't remember if it was just before or just after an episode of The Simpsons on Fox. That's how big that was. And they did it for Remember the Time too. Eventually later. But
and I mean, just to think about the fact that there was that he was at that height of his career, that they would broadcast it on a major network as the premiere of his music video. That's how big Michael Jackson was. Everybody, don't even try to talk about how big any of the artists are nowadays. Not to the level of what Michael Jackson was at that point in time.
Yeah.
This was a world artist. And I remember that video coming out and, loving that. And that's what starts this side C, the first side of the second record. I'm like, all right, that's awesome. The next song is Who Is It, which the video for that is batshit crazy. The original video for that, the one they by the way didn't show originally in the US. Originally in the US they showed a video of like concert footage, but there's a whole nother video that came out later in the US.
Really?
That went in Europe and whatnot. It's a crazy ass video. It's a good video.
Dude, I've never seen this. I'm going to have to find it. I've never seen it.
But it's a good song too.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's got the hook in that song is like crazy good. So that's on that side. I'm like, all right, I'm liking this part of the record. This is all, I mean, I like the first, the first album was great. The first record I put through both sides, great. But this is jamming. And then Give In to Me. And I remember that was my favorite song on Dangerous, but it had been years since I had heard it. And I remember, Slash was on it. But now, grown up, understanding what Slash sounds like, also what Slash sounds like with a good singer, like when, he actually got a good singer later with Miles Kennedy singing for him and whatnot. Bands just do that. Bands just get, when they ditch their crappy singer and they become like Alter Bridge, and they're good. They're good all of a sudden. Maybe the band was always good. It's just the singer that was garbage. You just got to go get a good singer. Man, listening to Give In to Me, and it's like the last third of the song is exactly what you expect from a song where Slash is playing. He is just guitar soloing, and when I was a kid, I didn't realize that it sounded like Slash. Now I know what Slash sounds like. And every bit of the guitar, I'm like, that is fucking Slash. He's just being Slash. And then the last third of the song, he is soloing and Michael is singing over it. And it's like, this is the best part of like any Guns N' Roses song, but with a better singer that's not as much of a douchebag. And that's the scary part for me to say that. But oh man, such a good song. The video for that's kind of crap, but the song itself, just listening to it, Slash is just going nuts. I'm like, this side of the album is fantastic. It's so good. It's just those 3 songs. But it's like, this is amazing. I could listen to these 3 songs fucking over and over and over. It's so good. And I realized then at that moment, it was like, wait a minute. I didn't buy 2 Guns N' Roses albums and a Michael Jackson album. I bought 3 Slash albums. That's what I
did. Yeah, you're right.
That's what
Holy
I did
shit,
at that
dude.
moment.
That's great. That's awesome.
So, you know,
I have oh my goodness. That's right. Oh my God, I always wondered, and I'm looking up the Wikipedia on Dangerous, and I didn't know this for the longest time, but Jam, I was wondering who did the rap verse in the middle of Jam.
Oh, it's Heavy D.
It's Heavy D, yeah.
Yeah, it's Heavy D.
Rex and
Effects are also on there.
She Drives Me Wild. Yep.
Yep.
Oh. In the Closet features vocals by Princess Stephanie of Monaco.
Yes.
Holy shit.
And actually originally Madonna was supposed to do vocals on that, but the stuff that she came up with was a little too salacious and he didn't want that. And then they lied forever about who actually did the vocals on In the Closet, who the female vocalist was.
Really?
They eventually released it that it was Princess Stephanie of Monaco. Yeah, it was a groundbreaking album, totally different album. I remember back in the day, there was a lot of people that a lot of Michael Jackson purists that really, really hated the album because it was not his normal sound. It was much grittier than his normal sound.
Oh,
and I just remember liking it.
Dangerous was like, but he was kind of on the path with that. Like, Bad was like on its way to that. You know what I mean? Bad was still a little poppy, like a little too pop. Dangerous was the first album where he didn't give a shit. He was just doing what he wanted to put out there. You know what I mean? Like he's treated every album like he's cared about it like it was his child. Like that was one of the big things about Thriller. There was so much production trouble in Thriller it wasn't even funny. They actually I remember seeing a documentary where they talked about it was Quincy who was talking about they did the master on Thriller after they cut the whole track, and they after they cut the whole album, they sent it off for mastering, and the LP that they got back. So the thing about LPs, and one of the things you need to keep in mind, the reason why a lot of albums now, especially a lot of stuff that came out in the 90s, were on double LP, is because you can crush a certain amount of time, only a certain amount of time, into the side of a record before the grooves are so close together that the high-end response, the clarity of the record, is compromised. Because the grooves are so close together that as the needle moves along, if you put too much sound information in the grooves of the record, what ends up happening is the grooves are so close that the needle doesn't have enough room to move in and out between those grooves as it travels, that it will start to reduce the quality of the sound. That's a big deal, and people have a big problem with that. So they sent the record off to mastering, they get the LP, they pop the LP on the record player, and they listen to it in the studio. And it was a huge thing where it was so crushed as far as there was just, the songs were too long to fit the sides of the record that they had designated, that Michael had a fucking mental breakdown on the record, to the point where what they ended up doing was they pulled the tape and they cut the tape and re-edited all of the songs in the proper time frame. They're like, okay, remove measure this to this in this song, and then remove measure this to this. They had to re-edit the entire album after it was entirely fully completed in order to get it to fit onto a single LP, because they knew a single LP was the goal. And
and here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Check, Mr. Wikipedia checker.
Yeah.
Check how long Dangerous is.
77:03. Mm-hmm.
Yep, I was gonna say it's about 78 minutes long.
Yeah, so it's a full length. It's a double. So that's a double album at that point, for sure.
Yeah,
most albums
established
can kick about 40 to 45 minutes before they start to lose information.
And that's we established that Metallica with Load with that CD pushed it to the very, very end with their 78 minutes and such. Like that's what Dangerous is. It's that length of an album. And again, without the compromising, he wanted to push it as far as possible. And I think he felt constrained by what Quincy was trying to do to get that pop sound. He wanted to be a little more experimentatory with it.
So get this. Again, so Thriller is, get this. It looks like this is something they were keeping in mind too, because check this shit out. So Thriller was 42:16 after all the editing was done. And then when I'm looking at Bad right now, and it turns out that there are two album lengths depending on the format. On CD, the album is 48:40, and on LP, the album is 43:59. So if you get the LP version, you are getting a shorter version of the album by 5 minutes. Now, I do not know. I'm going down to the track listing right now. Side 1, side 2. Okay. There is a bonus. Oh, wow. The bonus track on the CD release version is Leave Me Alone.
Okay, that makes sense.
So they added "Leave Me Alone" to the end of the album, but the first 10 songs of the album are the LP version. So "Leave Me Alone" is 4:41. So that adds to the CD version. That was the bonus track on the CD release. That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, but yeah, there's that's why you see. I actually just recently picked up Alice in Chains' "Dirt" on vinyl, and it's a double because you can't fit all of the sound data. But when you look at the groove cuts on those, is the Linkin Park album? I can't remember. You got it, and I got it. Is the Linkin Park album Hybrid Theory? Is that one disc or two? I can't remember. It's still one disc.
I don't know. I'm not sure. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Hold on.
I'm Wikipediaing it as he's looking it up. So let's see here. The length of Hybrid Theory. Oh yeah, it's definitely got to be one. From what I'm looking at, before James gets back here, it looks like the length of the record is 37 minutes and 45 seconds. So it most likely is a single disc, unless there's like a bunch of bonus stuff or something.
Okay, first of all, bitch, I didn't hear any of that. And the reason I didn't hear any of that is because I had to take my headphones off to walk around my desk to see how many album ends was in the thing.
Okay, fine, because that wasn't correct. For you.
There's one.
There's one disc, yeah. The album is 37 minutes and 45 seconds. Meteora is also 36 minutes, which is crazy. It's only 36 minutes. It's like EP size. But Meteora feels like, dude, there's 13 tracks on Meteora.
I mean, Linkin Park did not write very long songs.
I mean, I guess. Which is just crazy to me, because I remember when I picked up Meteora, it had like 2 discs in it and shit, like way back in the day. But there was always like that extra, like, that's what they ended up doing. It was like they did the album and they're like, okay, how much data space is left? Can we throw a video on it or something if you throw it on your computer? Which is, I don't think people do that anymore at all. But
no, not really.
God, I'm gonna have to find Meteora and get a copy of that one. I picked that one up on CD like way back in the day. But yeah, like that's always like some fascinating stuff. Just to see the lengths to which people went in order to like, that's I know it's I'm geeking out. Like it's like a technical thing for me, but that's what I get a kick out of is looking at how do people design an album to make it a musical experience. Because when you have to think, like, here's the thing, here's what Michael was doing at the time. He wasn't not caring that it wasn't on vinyl. He was going, which songs fit together well so that if I printed them on vinyl, they would sound good. You got one side of a record that you could listen to over and over because those songs are kick ass. That was intentional. That was, if we put this on vinyl, it would be 2 discs because he fucking put that shit out on vinyl when it first came out. And on those 2, and on the second disc, or even if it didn't, he had it in mind. That's the kind of stuff that people were doing at that time. When you create album-oriented music, when you grew up creating album-oriented music your entire life, you don't stop doing that. Look at every band that's been out for fucking 40, 50 years. Every one of them is making album-oriented rock now, and it still doesn't matter.
Well, no, even looking at Metallica's Load and Reload, the 3 songs roughly that are on each side of each record, they fit together so beautifully. It's a great melding of the songs. I mean, the fact that the second side of the first record is what is it? I think they get the first 4 songs on the first side, and so you get like on the second side you get King Nothing, Hero of the Day, and Bleeding Me. And it's like, that's beautiful. That exactly what it should be.
Yeah, that is a great trio of songs. I'm a huge fan of that. Or even if you look at Death Magnetic, you got 2 songs together and they're like 15 minutes.
or you got a band that has an album that's only that's 41 minutes and 37 seconds long. So if you put that on 12-inch, right?
Mm-hmm.
That would basically be one record.
It's about half and half. Yeah, 40 minutes or so.
But if you want to give people the 2 record experience, there's no point in doing 2 and doing a double album with only 41 minutes and 37 seconds.
Of course.
However, if you do 10-inch albums, that's the perfect medium to do 2 records with.
Are you doing it 45? 45 RPM?
No.
That is a thing I've seen before.
At 10-inch at 33, that's a good way to break up that 41-37 to give people a dual album experience.
Interesting.
I have that album. I have an album that is a 41 minute and 37 second album that is 10-inch vinyl, and it runs at 33 RPM. Now with our players, that means we have to drop the needle ourselves. We can't use the auto function.
Yeah, but, you're right, because 10-inch isn't. Mm-hmm.
But it's a really cool little, and it's a smaller packaging. It's a really cool little packaging idea to have a smaller package that when I bought it, I was like, what the hell is this? Is this even going to work? And it did. It worked fantastically. And actually a lot of 10-inch stuff actually does the higher RPM, not 45, but the 78s. The old 78s were often 10-inch size. So it's an unusual size. I just thought this was a cool little deal. How many of these are there that are, the 10-inch size albums? So now I'm going to be on the lookout to see if I can find other bands with 10-inch albums. Otherwise, this one will be my, little unique thing that I found. But it is the beauty of kind of that medium.
Who is this?
Fall Out Boy.
On dual 10-inch?
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
It's the only one of their albums that I actually like.
Which one is it? This Isn't a Scene?
Really... Huh?
Is it This Isn't a Scene?
No, it's Save Rock and Roll. It's the first album that they did after they had their kind of they had their hiatus, and the drummer and the guitarist did The Damn Things, which was fantastic little super group that I had the pleasure of being able to see twice. I believe you got to see them once, right?
Yes, only once. Damn good band.
And it was great to be like 3 feet away from Scott Ian the majority of the night.
Yeah.
But great band. They've released that band has released 2 albums. Second one not as good as the first one. The first one is absolutely amazing. Which is what we heard them playing when we saw them. And it was after they had done that they did this album, and it's it's a little different than most of the Fall Out Boy albums. It's got a little different feel to it. It still sounds like Fall Out Boy because it's still Patrick Stump singing, but it has a different feel to it. More importantly, it's kind of a concept album. There's a through line for the whole album, and they actually went and recorded. They made videos that's a through line story for the whole album. Like every song has a music video. You can actually watch on YouTube or wherever. You can watch the entire album, the videos for the entire album. So it has like a kind of a through line story. And I mean, it's a little cheesy because it's still Fall Out Boy, but it's kind of neat. And the album has a contained sound to it.
Wow.
It sounds like everything fits together. It kind of tells a story to some degree or other. And it's one of those that there are some albums that they just sound like they all belong together. Everything belongs within the album. And this is one of those that does. It all belongs together. And so it's some albums are hit and miss. You'll hear songs that you have hits and songs that are just like, what? This sounds like a good, and one of the reasons why I wanted to get it when I was making my list of albums that I wanted to get on vinyl to be able to listen to all the way through. This was one of those albums that was, just a one-off from a band that it has a continuous kind of feel and sound all the way through the album that, I want that one because it's a proper album together, it's a proper album, not just a collection of songs, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
But anyway, here we go, talking about records again.
Here, I got a weird ass story from like way back in the day for you. Did you ever look up oh man, which song was it? I was looking this up just the other day. Michael Jackson had a duet with Freddie Mercury that never actually, I mean, there was one song. They were supposed to do like 2 or 3 songs, right? And one of the songs, only one, actually had seen the light of day, but strictly because there was just such a huge amount of requests for it. And I think I don't know how the hell it got out there. Okay, here it is. So there was a song called There Must Be More to Life Than This that was done. Oh, wait, maybe this is a second one because I could have swore there was another one. And
I heard about it, but it was one of those things that I thought was an urban legend.
It sounded like it, but I actually found it. It's available on YouTube to anybody who wants to look it up. Just look up Michael Jackson, Freddie Mercury. But there was a there was a studio session where they were supposed to do 3 different songs, and I thought one of them was State of Shock, but I thought State of Shock was Jackson 5 with Mick Jagger. So I could be mistaken, but this took place back in 83, so it could have been. Yes, okay. So the 3 songs, the 3 demos that were produced were the songs There Must Be More to Life Than This, State of Shock, and the song Victory. Now, Victory was actually the title of a Jackson 5 album. So this was music that ended up coming out as Jackson 5 music. But what I thought was hilarious about this was the fact that this was back in 1983. This shows you how eccentric Michael Jackson himself was. Okay? Now, the 2 of them had a bit of a falling out. And the reason why they had a falling out is because neither one of them really liked the habits of the other as far as, doing what they were doing. Freddie's like pushing 40 and Michael's like 25 at this time, okay? And Freddie was actually even heard in an interview stating, he's like, this is crazy because this kid's like 25 years old, I'm pushing 40, but at the same time, he's been in the industry longer than I have by a long shot. But one of the things that they kind of got, they had a bit of a falling out about was just the fact they didn't like how the other person worked. Now, one of the things about that Michael didn't necessarily like about Freddie was that Michael didn't like Freddie's drug use. Like, apparently, Freddie was really into cocaine at the time. Not to talk shitty about anybody, but cocaine was kind of everywhere in the 80s. Right, exactly. Like everybody was doing cocaine. Apparently, except for Michael Jackson. Now, Freddie had a problem with Michael Jackson. Not because Michael Jackson had a problem with Freddie's cocaine use. Freddie had a problem with Michael Jackson because Michael Jackson insisted on having a llama in the studio with him during the entire session. And
that tracks.
It does, doesn't it? I didn't realize, like, I knew Michael was, like, into weird, eccentric shit. But there's literally no reason why. What I find really funny is that the more extreme circumstances by which one of these two needed to work was the one that was legal, and the other one was the one that was more frowned upon.
I mean, you know, that's...
Like, one of them has the capability of causing an extreme disaster in the studio, and the other one wasn't socially acceptable. And the thing is it's argued, dependent upon whose opinion you ask, which one is which.
I was going to say, because like, the cocaine can cause a lot of problems in the studio, but also llama.
Fucking llama. I have a serious aversion to llamas. Like, I went to, there was like a fucking petting zoo, like, not an exhibit, but, you know, like, people bring, like, petting zoo farm animals and shit over, like, swap meets. I went to, like, there's a local swap meet out here at Denio's. And I swear to God, like, one of the first times I went and was hanging out with my wife, we went out to Denio's just to go take a look, because we always look for, like, that's like our thing. We go look at weird collectible shit.
The llama would be totally a lure for her.
Totally, absolutely.
She's so animal focused. She'd be like, "Oh my God, llama!
Look, it's so cute. Like, you could pet it or whatever." And I'm sitting there standing, looking at a llama that will not fucking take its eyes off of me. And I know that it would eat me if it had the ability to do so. And I have stood in awkward silence, standing face to face with a llama. And it's not like the llama's looking at you head on. No. The llama's looking at you side head, like profile. And I got a profile look at this llama, and I'm staring at it, trying to just hold my drink. And that bitch is staring into my soul with one eye. That one eye on that one side of his head. And I swear to God, that thing, like, I don't think I've ever been intimidated by what is potentially known as a cute farm animal. Like, I've had run-ins with goats before, but a llama is an entirely different experience. Llamas are very intimidating. And this thing, like, I don't think...
Pigs are too, man.
Dude, a pig will fuck you up.
Yeah,
I
did like 2 days of trying to work at do work for local community people, whatnot, cleaning up farm area, just raking pins and whatnot. And there was this one pig, he wanted to bite my leg, just like literally bite my leg. Like trying to broke some skin on my on the shin, trying to bite my leg at various points.
Fuck you up.
Nope, I'm done.
Yeah, no, pigs will fuck you up. Like, there is, like, if there is any scene, any horror film that has ever instilled my fear of pigs, it sure as fuck wasn't Silence of the Lambs. No, it was Hannibal. Because when faceless Gary Oldman was launched into the pit of pigs and was eaten alive, that was the scene that fucked it up for me. That was the stay the hell away from pigs forever scene. For me, like, psychologically. Like, I was like, I ain't staying anywhere near pigs.
Yeah, I'll kill the fucker and eat it, but I ain't nothing beyond that. If I'm getting near the pig, it's gonna die, and then I'm gonna eat it.
That thing don't kill you first. That shit weighs like 1.5 times. Like, that guy, most pigs weigh like an adult pig. An adult pig is a large-ass animal, and it's all low weight. That shit will take your knees out, and before you know what you're doing, it's eating your face.
Now, just to be clear, some of us might weigh as much as some of the adult pigs.
But all that weight is at your knees, bro. That shit will take you out.
Oh, believe me, I nah. Any animal where one, they got teeth that can bite me easily, and two, they are higher. Their back is higher than my waist. I stayed the fuck away from those animals completely and utterly. I rode on a horse one time ever. That was the only time. It was the last time. It will not happen again. I wouldn't be one of those people like that. You hear stories of actors they're trying to get parts in Hollywood, and they'll, the casting directors will be like, "Well, do you know how to ride a horse?" And they're like, "Yeah, I know how to ride a horse." Nope, never ridden a horse in my life. I would tell the casting directors, I do not know how to ride a horse. I have no intention of riding a horse. Riding a horse ain't gonna fucking happen. I will walk. Put something in the story for my character that I walk, because I'm fucking walking. And I'm not walking anywhere near the goddamn horses. I'm staying away from the damn things.
You know what? No. What's really funny is horses don't scare me as much as llamas do. Like,
I wouldn't get near no llamas neither. Nor they say that alpacas are nicer than llamas.
I'm kind of cool with a horse. Like, it's really weird because horses, there's some level of control with a horse. A llama, dude, you just have to look in the wrong direction. That thing's taking your ear or your face without thinking twice. And have you seen a llama's teeth? I mean, it's weird because a llama is like a small horse with more with wool. It's the neck that throws me off. Like, I know a horse could eat your head. Like, it's got big-ass human-style teeth. A horse's mouth is very scary. You just know to stay away from it. But a llama's different. It's still got kind of like that almost horse mouth. But the thing is, it's something about the neck. It's like a mini giraffe with wool. Like, it's like you just have this... There's something about it that's off-putting because it looks like it should be cute, but you know that shit will... I'm sorry, it just scares the hell out of me. It's like...
I mean...
It's like nature's clowns. Like, they're not supposed to be... Like, they're not supposed to be scary, but they're really off-putting and scary. And they're only scary because everybody's really kind of learned that there's something really not okay.
Llamas, nature's clowns. So I'm guessing you're not a fan of The Emperor's New Groove.
You know what? As long as it's in animated format, like David Spade as a llama is okay. There's something about you make a llama David Spade and it's automatically non-threatening.
True. I mean, really,
I sure as fuck won't take my eyes off him anyway. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I ain't getting anywhere near no llamas. Forget that.
Look, man, if you're caught in a situation where you have to talk to a llama to turn him back into a human, that's fine. Just don't keep your eyes off him. That's all I'm saying. John Goodman just needed to look out the whole time. That's all.
I should do some amending of my description of the animals I steer clear of. Basically, if I don't have the capability of punting the animal in case of an emergency, I try to stay away from the animal.
So anything like German Shepherd and larger, you're like, no.
Well, dogs I'm afraid of anyway. I'm genuinely terrified of dogs.
Oh, really?
I
can understand.
Yeah,
I was terrified of dogs for a very, very long time.
I'm okay with puntable sized dogs because I know that there's some of the most vicious ones, like various Chihuahuas that I've engaged with in my lifetime are some of the most vicious dogs I've ever dealt with. But the difference is I can punt that dog across the room if I need to. I'm not an NFL place kicker or nothing. I ain't played no soccer, but I can kick a dog. I can kick a little dog across the room if I have to. If I absolutely have to. I don't want to do that, but I can. Smaller animals are fine once they get to a certain size. And I'm talking about any range of animal. Once they get to a certain size where you couldn't kick them away from you if necessary. It doesn't even have to just be across the room. Just kick them away from you. Like even as much as I love lizards, and I love my lizards, my bearded dragons are fantastic. But those are very puntable. They're tiny enough that you can punt them across the room, no problem. Like your guys' iguana, that thing is too big to punt. You try to punt it, and it will just grab onto your leg and shred it.
Well, I mean, no. The most it would do. See, that's the thing is, I only know from experience. If I had never experienced an iguana and seen something like that coming at me, I would absolutely run the other direction because you're right. It's too large to punt, and I completely understand that. me, I know that she's not going to try to eat me. She's just going to try to climb on top of my head. And that's literally, I'll get a scratch or two and that's about it. Like, but that's only because it's literally happened to me.
Yeah.
I actually had did I ever tell you about the stare down I had with that iguana? The first time I ever had to handle the iguana. So, okay. So for those who don't know, my wife and I have a pet rock iguana. Now, it's not a big old, like, most people think of iguanas as the ones that have like the huge ass claws and like the big old spikes coming off the back of it. And some people that know iguanas are like, they'll climb all over your curtains and like they like to get in the trees and shit. Like, this isn't the type of iguana. So this is a rock iguana. It's known as a rhinoceros iguana. So it's a ground iguana. It likes to climb on top of rocks. It likes to climb on top of larger surfaces that tend to be lower to the ground. They bask in the sunlight. They just chill. They're not like rainforest iguanas. Okay, so this is a desert iguana, to give context. Not a lot of trees in the fucking desert. So this thing isn't meant to like be high up. But it does like to climb. And part of what these types of iguanas do is they will climb on top of each other to establish dominance, like turtles, right? Turtles do the same thing. They will climb on top of each other to establish dominance. So now this rock iguana, when we first got her, we put her in we had her in a temporary enclosure that was a bird cage. And she's not small. Like, she's like 4 feet long. 4 feet, 5 feet long, including the tail. Big old girl, right? But temporarily we had
description for that. Not, as you said earlier, not puntable.
Understandable. But bear with, just to let other people. I'm not trying to convince you of anything, but just to let other people know the general context of what I deal with and the reason why I know the experience of what this iguana will do. And I'm just sharing this story. So I was deathly scared of this fucking thing. So when
you should be.
Well, now I'm not, because I have lived with this girl for like 10 years now. Right? So 10, 11 years I've been with my wife, and she's this iguana's name is Doodle, and she has been in my life for 10 years now. So we get it. I get her. We get along. We're chill now, but our first experience was very off-putting. So my wife was off at work one day. We had to get this iguana. We actually picked up the iguana after we started dating. No, well, she had owned the iguana. It was at her ex's house. We went to her ex's house, picked up the iguana, took it back after we started dating, and we got it. We brought her in a bird cage that is like big enough that you would get for like a parakeet, like a pretty large bird cage. So a standing bird cage. Imagine a standing bird cage, or like a rat cage that stands about 5 or 6 feet tall. Okay, and then you take that, you turn it on its side, and you just lay it on the floor. Because, again, low laying, enough to put a little bit of stuff in there. It was not the right size for her now. She's in like a 4 foot by 8 foot enclosure that we custom built for her. But beforehand, we had to keep her in something. And she was like maybe about 4.5 feet at this time. So it was pretty cramped for her. And she didn't like being in there very much as that was the only place that we could give her. So there was one space in the middle of this cage that was like an open space, and it was a space where you would have like there was like the top wire tray. It was like a dual cage. It was supposed to have like this plate in between it to like catch bird shit that we had to pull out. And so there was a hole there. And originally what we did was we didn't have any way of blocking that portion of the cage temporarily because the cage was incomplete. So we took cardboard and zip ties, and we closed the top of the cage. And we didn't have anything near that portion of the cage where she could get out. So as far as we knew. So my wife's off at work one day, and this is like maybe about 3 or 4 days into when the iguana is here at the house. And I am you remember this house. This was a house in Fair Oaks that we had. And it's got quite a bit of room in that living room area, and the cage was in the living room that was across the wall the wall with the window that faced towards the highway. You remember that, right?
Yeah,
on the other side of the kitchen.
Was announcer Scott still living there too?
I think he might have, and I think he was at work.
Okay,
so
he probably would have done his normal like freaking out but calm thing.
Oh, dude, like, Scott loved her.
Like, totally calm.
Scott actually absolutely loved her. He's big into like reptiles, snakes, and shit. And she had a pet snake and a pet rock iguana that we got. We got the snake and the rock iguana at the same time. And the snake was cool because the snake was in a tank, and the snake wasn't getting out of the tank. That thing, it's a ball python. It stays balled up under a cave in a heat light and doesn't move until you feed it. And that's it. But it doesn't go getting out. It was locked up. Like, the snake was no big deal. So, anyways, back to the iguana. This iguana did not like being in that space because it was too small for her. So she liked getting out. We had to take her, and we'd have to put her back in or make sure she didn't get out. Well, my wife was gone at work. Announcer Scott was gone at work. He was my roommate at the time. And thank you for reminding me, by the way. Yes, he did live there. So I am in the living room area. I had my home studio set up in like that little loftish, not the loft on top of the house, but the loft like side area that was above the staircase. Yeah. That right angled staircase we had coming up. So I don't know what's going on, but we still had one of the couches and the death chair were the two like sitting spaces in the living room area. We had the coffee table and the TV. And so I turn around to go grab myself some coffee in the morning. And I did not realize at this point. Now, the thing about rhinoceros iguanas is they have a little horn on the front of their nose, but their heads are extremely hard. Their heads are battering rams. They could either push their way through something if they could find out, and they have plenty of force with their head. They don't go biting. They hit with their head if they need to. They've got plenty of force they could use it with. However, what she was doing is she's a little fucking Houdini, and she's always checking and testing weak spots in whatever place and area she's in until she's content with the space she's in now. She's fine now. She hangs out until she gets fed. But she doesn't try to break out of those areas because she knows that she can't really test it, and she's fine where she's at. Like, I could almost leave the door open in that thing and she wouldn't necessarily want to get out. She's fine where she's at now. Right? But as far as the space that she was in, she wasn't happy. So she's always checking and climbing around things. And I heard her climbing it around. And then all of a sudden, it didn't click with me, but then silence. I thought she had gone to sleep. Wasn't really a big deal.
Okay, see, and here's the thing.
Right.
Here's the thing. You're new to being a pet owner at that moment in time.
Yes.
And being a pet owner is very similar to being a parent.
Right.
And the time that you worry is when shit gets quiet.
It's when you can't hear anything. Exactly.
Yeah, when you can hear the little buggers, be they your animals or your children, making noise, doing stuff.
Yeah.
You can kind of discern what the hell is going on by the noises that they're making. My kids make all kinds of weird noises that people come in the house and they're freaking out about the noises, and I'm just sitting calm and they're like, "Do you need to check that?" I'm like, "Look at me. Do you see me worrying? I'm being calm. Why? Because these are the noises we expect to happen." Then you hear a different kind of noise, or you hear the silence, and it's like, "Oh,
something's going up. What's going on?" Yeah,
that's what there's no more noise is happening now.
Yeah, exactly. It's you hear the noise, you know they're alive. You know they're okay. Especially normal, regular, repeated noise. You know what's up. And this is like I was new to this, so I didn't have that context at the time. And so, especially with a lizard, I had no fucking clue, and I was scared to death of this thing. I walk out, and I go to grab myself a cup of coffee. And I look around that corner, and I look into that room, and she is perched on top of the death chair. What we called the death chair at the time. This death chair, to anybody to anybody listening, I had a special chair that I had for years, and it was the chair that during house parties, no matter who it was, you would sit in the chair and immediately, like, you would be asleep in 10 minutes. It's a very comfortable chair. It was a very comfortable chair. We got rid of the chair eventually, but it lived with me for like at least 2 or 3 living spaces before we finally got rid of it. I brought the chair all the way to the house I live in now, and that was like 2 or 3 places in. I kept that chair because I was in love with that chair. And so, also it was lightweight. It was really easy to move, but it was so damn comfortable. It was stupid. But anyway, that chair became... I never fell
asleep in that chair, just so you know.
You never fell asleep in the chair?
Nope. Never.
Wow. You are probably one of the only people I knew of that didn't fall asleep in that chair. Everybody I knew of at some point, like, curled up. You could curl up into it was crazy about that chair. You could curl up into it like it was a beanbag. Like you were 6 years old and it was a beanbag. It would just swallow you whole and you would just like nestle in it and fall asleep. It's crazy. People would sit in that chair and just fall asleep on accident all the time. It's great. But anyway, that chair became that lizard's favorite chair that day. And I didn't realize it until I finally turned around to go grab my coffee, and she is perched directly on the very top of that chair. And I had a stare down with her from 10 feet away for like 2 minutes, what felt like an eternity, because I didn't know what to do. It wasn't like, it straight up became Jurassic Park to me. It's like, don't move. It's visions based on movement. Like, it just wasn't, I didn't know what the fuck to do. And my phone wasn't near me either. My phone was on the counter in the kitchen, which you know where that is. I had to cross past the death chair to get to the phone.
Yeah.
And so's my coffee, god damn it. Like I was in a very inconvenient situation. Worst fears realized at this point as to what to do.
I mean, you could have barely possibly made it down the hallway towards the 2 bedrooms.
Oh, no, yeah, possibly
flatten yourself against the wall to get there.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh God, like, what do I do? So I slowly maneuver my way towards the kitchen, grab my phone, and I call my wife. I call Tash. And I was like, honey? I think I even mentioned to her when she put it together with cardboard and zip ties, I was like, I don't think that's going to hold. Like, it's cardboard and zip ties. And what you've told me about her is she will rip through that shit eventually and make it out. And so I was like, oh God, what can we do? So anyway, I get a hold of her. We eventually, I think we took a piece of plastic, like we went to Joann's and got some of that hard plastic and cut it in, and did the same thing, and she never made it back out of that after that. But
you know what you guys should have done?
What?
You should have got a like the large style dog crates. They're only like $50. Seriously, like the large.
You know what would be funny about that is those large style dog crates have those little like hand triggers. Like you would have to put a padlock on it in order to make sure it locked. But the large style dog crates that you're talking about, those are smaller than the birdcage enclosure.
Really? Okay.
Oh yeah, by a long shot. The birdcage enclosure was fucking huge. So anyway, like I slowly like maneuvered my way aside, and she's staring at me with one eye the entire time. I don't know what it is about like animals that stare at you with one eye coming out of the side of their head that freak me out. But what's funny is that, like, I know the science behind the fact that eyes are on the side of the head. It's so that they can watch for predators while they're eating. Like, you don't... Yeah. Like, the thing is it's because they are lower on the food chain. Animals. Yeah, they're prey animals, which means they're just acting in self-defense. Like, 99% of the time. Anything they're doing is just to survive. They're not going to, like, go after you unless you're a threat. And if they go after you, they better make sure that they can fucking see you. Because their first option is going to be to run away. Like, that's what they're going to try to do first. So I call my wife.
Just so we're clear for people who need to understand the concept here. Again, prey animals, they have their eyes on the side of their head so that they have close to 360 view, depending on what type of animal that they are. The purpose is to, of course, be able to spot predators. And they are typically herbivorous animals or insectivores because they again are not predators eating the meat of other animals.
Such is the case with this iguana, by the way. The
hallmark of a predator, huh?
Such is the case with this iguana, by the way. That is exactly what it is.
the hallmark of a predator animal is their another thing for prey animals, by the way, they are able to move their ears as well. Again, in all directions, again, to be able to spot prey. The hallmark of predator animals are they have their eyes in the front of their head. Their ears are more stationary and pointed frontwards because the concern is what's directly in front of them that is their prey. And of course, they have sharp teeth meant for rending flesh. Interesting to note, all of those things describe humans, which is why we're supposed to eat meat. So suck it, all you vegans and vegetarians. We're supposed to eat meat designed by nature to do so. And if you believe in a deity that designed us, well, we were designed by that deity to also eat meat. So suck it, vegetarians. Anyway, moving on. Sorry.
Yes, exactly. So I'll agree with all of that. But essentially the idea here is that I don't know any of this shit. Like, I don't know if she's going to come after me. I don't know what to do. So I call my wife. And she's like, oh, you don't need to worry about it. I was like, I've got to do something. Like, do I get her back in the cage? I don't want to pick her up and manhandle her and shit. Like, I don't want to touch her. But, I mean, she's going to shit on the chair at some point, and I don't want her to do that. So what do I do? And so she's like, oh, don't worry about it. Just go get a towel, like a bath towel, and throw it over the top of her and cover her head and then pick her up and throw her into the bathroom. I was like, into the bathtub. I was like, what? So you want me to just take a towel and pick her up and bag her up and like I'm kidnapping her and then throw her into the bathtub? She's like, yeah, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it when I get home. She started laughing, by the way, this entire time. I'm freaked the fuck out and I don't know what I'm doing. And she's laughing she's laughing her ass off the entire time trying to like describe to me what to do. And so I kind of did what I did, but like I did what I did like a crying child the entire time. So I go grab the towel. I'm like, oh God, okay. And then I take it and when I threw the towel the first time I missed, like I tried to throw the towel and I threw it too far over the chair. And now she's on high alert because I've thrown something at her. And so she's like juking and stuff while I'm trying to get her wrapped the towel. And so eventually what I do is I get the towel around her and she's freaking out and thrashing around. Her tail's going everywhere. And I pick her up and just like screaming run into the front bathroom. And like, I don't like throw her, but I place her on the floor of the bathroom like I don't even hit the bathtub. Fuck walking in there. I place her on there. I shut the door, like screaming the entire time, and I'm like, finally, okay. That's it. It's done. My wife gets home. Eventually afterwards, she has tucked herself like hidden in a corner behind the toilet and just like has tried to no, she wasn't. She was actually in the bathtub. She climbed her way into the bathtub from the bathroom floor and was sitting there waiting because Tash had trained her to like take baths. Like the lizard takes baths in warm water. She like, as soon as the warm water starts flowing, she lays out flat and just chills out in the warm water to warm up because lizard exothermic.
Yeah.
So I'm like, but I mean, still, man, this thing's like 4.5 feet long. Lizard I've never touched in my life.
A primer would have been nice for you to have before being left completely alone in the situation. Yes.
To be completely honest, she probably did give me a primer. And like, well, this is what happens if, but at the same time, like even hearing it, hearing about what to do in that situation doesn't prepare you for the experience. Like you just need to do it once and then be cool with it. And then eventually, like me and her were chill. We were buds. Like at that point, like there's pictures of me like on Facebook and shit. And I've got her climbing on my shoulders and stuff. And she was chill after that. She was all right. And she likes to like, it's funny, it's fucking weird. Like she likes to hang out in crowds of people. Like if you're hanging out in the living room and sitting on the floor, there were parties where Tash would hang out with a couple of other friends and like a bunch of our friends where none of us minded. And she would let him, cool if I let the lizard out? Sure, just go ahead. And she would just sit in the middle of the floor, just like hanging out while the rest of us are gathered around her. Like, she liked to be center of attention. She liked to hang out. And she was cool with being pet. She was cool with being, like, touched and stuff. It was, like, no big deal. Like, there was never any time where she thought she was threatened by people. She loved being around people. She still loves being around people. It's so weird. But it's just, that first experience, man, like, I don't know what it is. Like, I completely understand people getting freaked out by him. Like, I do entirely. But it was just, it's the weirdest thing. And that's some shit that you can't get used to unless you're like in the thick of it and you have to have that experience. And it's also very nice to have somebody coach you through the whole thing. Like, now she's chill. Like, now I'm all right with it. But it did take a traumatic experience and like 10 years of training in order to make sure that I knew what I was doing.
Still, for me, not puntable. So even as much as I love, and I do, I love lizards. Nope, not puntable. I stay away.
I can understand that. It's all good. I'll make sure that the lizard never makes it into the living room next time you're over. Okay.
Well, I mean, it's never happened. Anytime I've been over.
Okay.
Besides, how does it deal with the dogs?
We like to keep the dogs away because the dogs are really curious, and she wouldn't necessarily eat them, but they are kind of like at her level. So if they approached her, she would defend herself. She would hurt them, trying to defend herself. She wouldn't like go after them to eat them, but she'd be like, "Stay the fuck away from me." We keep the dogs away. We actually keep them. We have walked her, so we'll open the cage and walk her out down the hallway and into the front bathroom, so she can take baths. And when we do that, we lock off. We have baby gates that we lock off the hallway to make sure the dogs are out of the way, and let her walk the hallway so that she can head into the bathroom. And she totally does. The dogs are always super curious about it and stuff, but when they're locked behind that baby gate, there's no danger. So that's chill, but we make sure that we're safe about that.
Well, that would make sense.
Yeah.
So one final note to end the night. I did want to comment real quickly on the fact that you know what? No. We've done enough time for tonight. I will save this. I will save the abomination that your wife posted pictures of on Facebook a few weeks ago. I'll save the story of the abomination for our next podcast.
And here I go to try to get context. What in the hell are you talking about?
Your wife posted a picture of an abomination, a food abomination, something to anger the food gods forever. And we're going to talk about it, but we didn't get a chance to today, so we will talk about that one later.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I'm down. Let's do it. We'll do it then.
So anybody listening to this one, you want to listen to the podcast next week to hear my rant about this, just one of the most disgusting food things I've ever seen in my entire life. Just absolutely just. Ugh.
That was so good.
And for a tiny bit of context, just so people don't think I'm just totally hating on Mike's wife and her cooking ability.
That was so. Your reaction was priceless.
I am sure that anybody who likes. It's not that she is a bad
Look,
cook.
Man, we shouldn't get into this now.
It's not that she's a bad cook. It's just that the thing that she made was just. It was so wrong. It probably tasted good for anybody that wanted to have that thing made.
We'll talk about it next week.
Anyway, yeah, we'll be talking about that next week. Mike, where are people going to hear this and tune in next week to listen to us talk about the abomination of food?
Okay, hold on. Before I go into that, I wanted to say one last thing that I consider extremely important, especially concerning a hero of mine that we just learned literally today. Both of us learned literally today. You, as a matter of fact, told me about them. And I want to mention at least both of them today. First off, I wanted to say something about the passing of both Gallagher, who is a comedy legend, absolute comedy legend, not just for Smashing Watermelons, man. That guy was one of the smartest fucking people in comedy throughout the 80s and 90s. 100%.
That was one of the best parts of his comedy. He was able to, like, unlike many comedians, he was able to actually take the highbrow comedy, the really intelligent social commentary comedy, and he would do that as part of the stand-up gig he was doing. But then he would also have major prop comedy as well.
Yeah,
and so he'd have all kinds of weird props, and not just the mallet smashing things, but other weird props that he would have as part of his act. And he combined that lowbrow prop comedy, that cheesy, simple breaking stuff and making people laugh, with really, really intelligent highbrow comedy. And he did it unbelievably seamlessly. He was a guy that, like, you wouldn't, from his appearance, you wouldn't expect he would have that kind of level of knowledge. But I put him up there with some of the highbrow stuff that Carlin was spitting out.
Yeah.
And what Hicks was spitting out. I mean, really, he got 100%. Into that social commentary level while also just doing the silliest stuff, and a great blending of both kind of ways of dealing with comedy. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. You 100%. I absolutely agree. I would love to to talk about him more. Not necessarily right now, because we're over for time, but another absolute fucking legend passed. Actually, he passed yesterday. And succumbed to cancer, which I did not know. I didn't realize or remember seeing a post about it or a news article or anything about it. So it was brand new news to me and just hit me like a train today when you broke the news to me. The voice of Batman that Xennials the world over remember. From the animated series, who has been the penultimate voice of Batman in any major context, the voice that everyone is compared to, period, regardless of what animated feature, voice-wise or not. Kevin Conroy passed away yesterday, succumbing to cancer, and it has left a hole in me, especially being the fact that I always, my entire life, have looked forward to the next experience that Kevin would have provided. Every time, whenever I find out that Kevin Conroy is part of a DC-based animated or gaming experience or whatever, to anybody, I can guarantee you, if you are listening to this podcast, you know who he is, not necessarily because of his name, but because of the voice. Like, he is the voice of Batman, and has been the voice of Batman not only through the animated series. He was the voice of Batman for the Killing Joke animated feature that was extremely controversial just from other things that were done outside of it, outside of the essential comic book storyline, which I personally thought was very interesting, and the whole feature in and of itself was great. But he is the Batman to Mark Hamill's Joker. But any other time where Mark couldn't even make it, where Mark wasn't the part of those games, not to mention like he was there for the Arkham game series. Any of the Arkham Batman. Yes, he was the Arkham Batman. The only ones he wasn't was Arkham Origins, and Arkham Origins Blackgate, which was taken over by another gentleman, and the newer one now, Kevin is not in. He may have turned it down, but it was a WB Montreal game, which were the guys that did Arkham Origins. That is called Gotham Knights, which interestingly enough happens to be a story that takes place after the death of Batman, which happens in the very beginning of the game. I am very much looking forward to playing that, even regardless of whether or not Kevin is in it. But dude, he was in the Injustice games as Batman. He has been. He was in so many of the animated features. Like, he was throughout the Justice League stuff. He actually got to play live action Bruce Wayne during the CW Crisis on Infinite Earths series as well. It was the first time, and it was finally like such a justification for him as an actor to be able to play Bruce Wayne and or Batman on screen for the first and only time in his life. So, but this was a big one to me. This was huge. Like I said,
and go on, sorry.
I was going to say, like I said, his voice was the voice to look forward to. It's still, to this day, I feel like something's missing in an animated DC feature, of which I watch all of them. If Kevin's not part of it, it feels like there's a piece missing from it. And now from yesterday forward now, there will always be a piece missing to every DC feature that's done from now on.
Actually, there will likely be two pieces missing, because Mark Hamill has famously said in interviews that he doesn't even read scripts for any Batman content anymore.
Oh.
All he asks is if Kevin is doing it. If Kevin's doing it, then Mark Hamill's doing it. Mark Hamill may consider to never do the Joker again, just based on the fact that Kevin won't be there to work opposite of. And so, yeah, it's for anybody that has loved any of those versions of Batman, it's definitely a loss.
Yeah.
Not to be able to hear him do anything Batman related again. And that we have those situations where we lose our heroes sometimes before we want to.
I'm curious if there is anything that's in the bank that WB has that they can work with. There actually was a Batman 66 feature, an animated Batman 66 feature. There were two of them that came out that featured Adam West, Burt Ward, and Julie Newmar, and they're all amazing features. Or they're both amazing features. The second one was great. There was one that was Batman 66. I can't remember what Return of the Caped Crusaders or something like that. And it was great. And all of the voice actors they brought in for all the legacy characters, to like the guys that took over for, Cesar Romero and Burgess Meredith, right? Was he the Penguin? Is that his? That's yeah. I'm trying to think of the actors. Anyways, the people that took over for them were great at their roles. But hearing Adam and Burt and Julie Newmar were fucking amazing. Those were great. They were actually, they played a lot with the context. It was great. But there was a second feature that was done that was absolutely fantastic, that I got to see. And it was William Shatner as Two-Face, as Harvey Dent. And he takes over as Two-Face. So it's William Shatner doing the roles of both Harvey Dent and Two-Face. And even Shatner it's like they take that voice and they put him in with Adam and Burt and everybody. And Adam's lines were already recorded for that show, for that feature, before he passed away, and they had it in the bank. And then Adam West passed away, and like 2 or 3 years later, this feature comes out, and it was completely unannounced, and it just dropped, and they got Shatner for it to do his parts. And that was like, it was like one final Batman hurrah with Adam West, which was just so well done. If you haven't seen either one of these features, I definitely recommend it. And I'm saying that to you, James, and to everybody else who's listening. Like, check both of those two out. But I hope that there is something in the bank that Kevin may have done that is somewhere. And even if there isn't, I'm going to be sad, but I'm going to understand. But like, it's one of those things, like, there's a part of me that feels like there's a hole there. Like, I want to see one more feature with Kevin before he goes. And even if it doesn't happen, I understand, but there's still a part of me that's going to want that. You know what I mean?
Very much understand.
Yeah. So my apologies for taking it as far as I have tonight, past our outro, but I had to say something.
That's all right, and it's understood. Again, that's part of what we do. We have done regularly on the podcast is talk about the celebrities and the heroes that we've lost, and heck, even the friends and family that we've lost.
Yeah.
Again, Mike, where are people going to be listening to us at?
Well, you can be checking us out on the XennialChronicles.com or Zencron.com if you want to get there faster. You can check us out on most major podcast platforms, including, well, look us up and find us. You can also find us on YouTube as well. YouTube has a podcast platform, and they've also got us. Our podcasts all upload in video format on YouTube. If you're listening to us on YouTube or watching the video or whatever, make sure that you head down underneath where that video is and click the like button for us. And next to that, make sure you click the subscribe button for us. And next to that, there's something else to do. James, what is that?
Click the bell.
That's right. Click the bell. Make sure you get notified the next podcast or video or whatever that we have on YouTube that we put out. And I believe that's it for me, James. What about you?
While you're there on YouTube, first of all, check out all the wonderful things that we talked about tonight, just because it's always fun to go down YouTube rabbit holes. Recently, I've been watching the Graham Norton Show, one of my favorite British talk shows.
Oh, he's fantastic.
Also, while you're there, please check out Mike's 2 other YouTube pages. His page that he does with his wife, Chronicles Games. This is Mike and his wife playing video games.
Yeah.
Apparently there was originally an idea of how they were going to do video games. Now it's just them playing video games. And you know what? It's still fun. And they have a Twitch stream? Am I saying?
Yeah, we have a Twitch channel where we do the more random stuff and then we upload those Twitch videos, but we are still actually doing our Chronicles based format. We're actually currently archiving more videos to put up. So
fantastic. Mike's other page is his Whirling Note music page. This is Mike, the music guy, talking about everything music. Please check both of those out.
Yeah.
Like, subscribe, click the bells on those, and give yourself some more entertainment to have when you're around doing your daily drudgery and trying to survive in this weird world. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you again next week.
Y'all have a good one.
Thank you for tuning in, friends. The journey continues next week.